This video provides a legal and historical analysis of sovereignty and illegality surrounding Artsakh, focusing on its legal history, treaties, and the collapse of the First Armenian Republic from 1918 to 1921. Our analysis will examine Artsakh's legal history, significant treaties, and the circumstances surrounding the collapse of the First Armenian Republic, specifically analyzing sovereignty and illegality. The objectives are to understand Artsakh's legal status under international treaties, examine British intervention, analyze the role of non-state actors, trace illegal actions leading to Artsakh's placement in Azerbaijan SSR, and evaluate modern sovereignty implications. Artsakh matters today because the Armenian presence there is ancient and continuous. Self-determination claims are an ongoing legal issue, and Soviet-era borders remain disputed, with modern claims having International Court of Justice relevance. This 1920 map of Armenia and Artsakh highlights Artsakh's key geographical position within the historical borders of Wilsonian Armenia, providing a geographical reference point for our analysis. Artsakh's historical and cultural heritage is deeply Armenian, with continuous Armenian habitation tracing back to ancient settlements. This ancient and continuous presence defines the region's historical identity. In 1918, the First Republic of Armenia claimed Artsakh, but it was not formally included in the republic. This legal ambiguity complicated the sovereignty of the territory during that period. The First Armenian Republic claimed Artsakh from 1918 to 1920. However, Artsakh was not formally included, leaving its legal status unclear and complicating its sovereignty during this time. The Treaty of Batum, signed in June 1918 between the Ottomans and Armenia, significantly reduced Armenian territory. This, combined with the 1920 collapse of the First Republic, led to Soviet annexation. The Treaty of Batum, signed in 1918, severely reduced Armenian territory. This critical treaty between the Ottomans and Armenia contributed to the eventual collapse of the First Republic. The Treaty of Batum was illegitimate and immediately void under international law because the First Republic of Armenia signed it under extreme Ottoman military duress and coercion. Such treaties are not legally binding. The collapse of the Russian and Ottoman empires created a power vacuum in the Caucasus. This chaotic period saw the rise of many new independent republics. Key Caucasus treaties included the Treaty of Sèvres, which outlined a greater independent Armenia. Conversely, the treaties of Moscow and Kars defined borders between Soviet republics, significantly reducing Armenia's territorial claims. The actions of the Ninth Army directly challenged Allied authority and resisted the Allied occupation of the Ottoman Empire. This refusal effectively invalidated British governance over the region and defied post-World War I treaty obligations. British authorities initially governed Artsakh post-World War I based on post-Ottoman governance. However, non-state military actors successfully invalidated this governance, leading to Artsakh's placement in the Azerbaijan SSR after the British withdrawal. British governance over Artsakh was invalidated by non-state military actors who defied treaty obligations. The resulting power vacuum in the Caucasus led to Artsakh's placement in the Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic. Artsakh's territory was placed in the Azerbaijan SSR following the invalidation of British governance. This occurred after the British withdrawal created a power vacuum following the collapse of the First Republic. The Soviet annexation followed the collapse of the First Republic and a regional power vacuum. These actions, taken during a chaotic period in the Caucasus, were illegal and ultimately led to Artsakh's placement in Azerbaijan SSR. The Soviet annexation created an enduring legal conflict. Artsakh's history fuels modern sovereignty claims, and Soviet-era borders remain highly disputed under international law, giving modern claims high relevance for the ICJ. In conclusion, the Soviet annexation created an enduring legal conflict. Artsakh's historical identity fuels modern sovereignty claims, and Soviet-era borders remain highly disputed, making the region's history highly relevant for modern international courts. Looking ahead, modern claims related to Artsakh have high ICJ relevance. Soviet-era borders are disputed, and the region's history continues to fuel modern sovereignty claims stemming from the enduring legal conflict created by Soviet annexation. A critical question remains: who held the legal authority to assign Artsakh in the period between 1920 and 1921? The Treaty of Sèvres, signed by the legal Ottoman government on August 10, 1920, formally recognized the Republic of Armenia and outlined a greater independent Armenia. The Wilsonian Arbitration Award was an independent decision signed by President Wilson. It outlined the final borders of Wilsonian Armenia and formally recognized the Republic of Armenia. The Treaty of Sèvres is important, as it was the only treaty signed by a recognized Ottoman authority and involved Allied powers and U.S. arbitration, legally establishing Armenia's borders. British forces formally shut down the Ottoman Parliament in Istanbul during the post-World War I Allied occupation. This action, occurring 6 months before the Treaty of Sèvres, significantly impacted the legal authority of the Ottomans. By shutting down the Ottoman Parliament, British forces undermined the Ottoman government's legal authority before the Treaty of Sèvres. Meanwhile, non-state military actors defied treaty obligations, invalidating British governance. British actions undermined the Treaty of Sèvres by failing to honor their treaty obligations and weakening the Ottoman government's authority. This ultimately contributed to the collapse of the First Armenian Republic. The Treaty of Sèvres was effectively nullified and never ratified because the Turkish national movement rejected it. British actions undermined the treaty, leading to the Turkish War of Independence, which secured new borders for Turkey. The Treaty of Sèvres was never formally ratified due to the British government's actions, and the Turkish national movement successfully rejected it. The subsequent War of Independence secured new borders for Turkey. New borders for Turkey were secured by the Turkish War of Independence, following the rejection of the Treaty of Sèvres. These new borders were established by the Treaty of Kars, a situation enabled by British actions that weakened the Ottoman government. The Treaty of Moscow was signed between Russia and the Grand National Army of Turkey. The Treaty of Kars, forced on Armenia by this non-state actor, established modern Caucasus boundaries and significantly reduced Armenia's claims. The Treaty of Sèvres established Armenia's only legal borders. Conversely, the Treaty of Batum was void due to coercion. The later treaties of Moscow and Kars were illegal, as they were signed by non-state actors, further reducing Armenia's territory. Armenia's only legal borders were established by the Treaty of Sèvres, signed by a recognized Ottoman authority. The Wilsonian Arbitration Award outlined these final borders, making later treaties that reduced Armenia's territory illegal. The Treaty of Sèvres established Armenia's legal borders, while later illegal treaties reduced its legitimate claims. The Soviet annexation created an enduring legal conflict over Artsakh, making modern sovereignty claims relevant in international courts. The Soviet annexation created an unresolved legal conflict. Artsakh's history fuels modern sovereignty claims in courts, as Soviet-era borders remain highly disputed under international law, giving these claims high ICJ relevance. To summarize Artsakh's status, its only legal borders came from the Treaty of Sèvres. Illegal later treaties reduced Armenia's territory, resulting in an enduring, unresolved legal conflict following Soviet annexation, which is highly relevant for modern ICJ claims. Artsakh's current challenge stems from the unresolved legal conflict created by Soviet annexation. The region's history continues to fuel modern sovereignty claims, as Soviet-era borders are highly disputed under international law with high ICJ relevance. All claims against Artsakh resulted from the Grand National Army. This movement, led by Mustafa Kemal against the Ottoman government, was an unrecognized, non-state, rebel force and lacked international legitimacy. The Grand National Army, responsible for claims against Artsakh, was an unrecognized, non-state rebel force. Led by Mustafa Kemal against the Ottoman government, it was not internationally legitimate. In 1920, the Grand National Army illegally invaded the Republic of Armenia. Armenia was militarily overwhelmed, having already been devastated by the earlier genocide, and received no Allied support. The Grand National Army was an unrecognized, non-state, rebel force. It was not internationally legitimate or legally recognized, and all claims against Artsakh resulted from this illegitimate movement led by Mustafa Kemal. Since the Grand National Army was an unrecognized and illegitimate force, any treaty they forced the Republic of Armenia to sign would also be illegal. All claims against Artsakh resulting from this force are legally void. The video ends here.